Hey YouTube, welcome back to another awesome moto vlog here. In today's vlog we're going to be talking mainly about carbon fiber and how to repair it. I kind of knew this day would come, you know, putting all this carbon fiber all over the car, low-hanging areas such as the rear bumper and up near the front. I knew that there was just going to be a matter of time. I didn't know when, but I knew at some point in time I was going to hit something and crack it. So to mainly just kind of bring you into why I'm doing this video is, you know, of course the time came and I damaged the first piece of carbon fiber, and this piece right here is the passenger side rear diffuser. It's a 3-piece diffuser, so this is luckily the only piece that got damaged. Unfortunately, I was backing out of my driveway and there was a cement paver block behind my car, and it was low enough that the radar system in the car did not see it. Got a crack here, so if you can see, hopefully. And when I damaged this piece, it really made me notice all the other pieces of carbon fiber that were on the car. And I started glancing things over a little bit more and I started realizing, wow, this stuff's in rough shape. There's a lot of blemishes, and this is where I think I knew when I was going with eBay carbon fiber there had to be a downside, and I didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew that there was potentially a downside with quality. And I think I found that downside, and I think that downside is that the eBay carbon fiber epoxy coating that's on the outside of all these pieces tends to degrade and wear potentially faster than some of the quote higher quality carbon out there. I don't have any pieces to do kind of like a longevity test, but I assume that over time even those pieces could potentially fail depending on the quality of the resin that's poured over top of the carbon. And so this video I mainly decided, let me just strip off all of the carbon that's in rough shape and let's fix that coating. The epoxy resin coating that's on here, if it's garbage, let's just sand it off. I think what we can do is we can fix a lot of this ourselves, and it should be a pretty straightforward process. And the best thing about it is it's stuff that you can do. It's very inexpensive to do yourself. It's a little bit time consuming and it takes some patience, but in general I think this is something that everybody can do over a long weekend. So with some recent projects of mine I've been doing, actually worked out perfect. I have about half of the hardener and the epoxy here left. So this is spare. It was just lying around, so this actually works out perfect. And the best thing about this is, I'll kind of get a little bit better of a close-up here, is this is Pro Marine. So this is a marine grade boat epoxy. So in my mind, this stuff should hold up really well. So mainly what we're going to do is we're going to take just some regular sandpaper. I'm going to start off with 150 grit, and I'm going to hit every piece here. And before I go there, let me at first, explain a little bit what I got laid out on the table here. I'll put some screenshots or maybe some picture-in-picture here off to the side so that you can see kind of the detailed of me taking some of these parts off. But what I have here in front of me is, like I said, this piece of the rear diffuser, which is obviously damaged, and we should be able to salvage this piece and make it look a lot better. And then instead of spending, $700 on a whole new diffuser just because one piece is cracked, let's repair what we have and try to salvage it. Worst case scenario, we just, learn from a mistake and we just buy a new piece. Another thing that I did was I took off the two front lips. Well, I guess they're not really front lips. These are more like splitters. They're kind of like a shell. They go over the front splitter section in the front bumper. The right side, the epoxy resin is starting to, as you can see there, it is chipping away. You know, rock chips hit it. And one of the things in particular that I really noticed that was very kind of a big bummer for me was that this epoxy coating yellows. But I really think it's sun damage to the clear coat of this epoxy, and I think we can completely remove all of that damage, sand this down, and then we can recoat it, and it should, you know, make it look like a brand new piece of carbon again. And then this last piece, which I still didn't talk about yet, this is the carbon fiber rear trunk lip. As you can see, this piece isn't really that bad. So these edges here are starting to kind of peel up. It's like chipping on the edge, and let's get a better view of that piece that kind of like looks bad. Where is it at? There it is. So as you can see here, it's like sun damage is like slowly kind of, the clear coat's just kind of peeling up. It really just takes away from the whole look of the car. So I think we can fix this up. Once we hit it with 150, we'll go back through with 240 and get it a nice smooth finish. We want to be very careful though. I've never done this. I have no idea what's going to happen here, but in my mind I'm thinking I just want to remove a few layers of this epoxy. I want to be very careful that I'm not going so far down that I'm, you know, rubbing the carbon and damaging it underneath, so I need to be careful with that. Hopefully we can just sand off a few layers here, maybe not even go all the way down to the carbon, just get all this like top garbage coating off, and then once we get everything sanded down, we'll mix up some epoxy and we'll start, you know, painting everything on, and hopefully we can get a nice clear and even coat, and we can really just make this carbon pop and bring it back to life. Let's get started. We will go ahead and we're going to sand everything down, hit it light with some sandpaper, get off all the blemishes, and then once these blemishes are all clear, we'll clean it off again with the isopropyl at the end, and then we'll start mixing the epoxy, and I'll bring you back around and we'll talk about the epoxy and how to apply it in a bit. So I've been working with this a little while here. I decided to go ahead and get some higher grit sandpaper. I was using up to 250 prior to this, and the 250 was okay, but I want to get a nice smooth finish. I don't want to have any small scratches. I want this to basically look like dry carbon. I want it to have a smooth look without scratches in it, but you know, get that clear coat off so that we get a good bond with the epoxy. So I decided to get some 400 and 600 grit, and we're going to just cut this a little bit more and get ourselves a better finish. Alright guys, we are back. I've probably been sitting out here sanding all these pieces probably for I'd say 2 hours now, maybe going on 3. The reason for that being is I went all the way up to a 600 grit on the sandpaper. Started out at 150 and 80 at some points where there was some real heavy damage to the clear coat, and I wanted to just kind of bust through that, so 80 got through it pretty well. And I worked all the way up 150, 240, 320, 400, 600, and wow, it's been a lot of work. My hands are pretty raw from it. For testing purposes, I want to start off with this rear lip, or this is the trunk lip. I want to start off with this mainly because it's a relatively easy piece to resand if I have to, and I don't want to go and finish all the other pieces and then run into issues down the road. What you're going to want to do is get yourself any kind of measuring cup or some sort. This is like a 20 pack on Amazon. They're awesome. If you can see, there's all sorts of ratios on here. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing 1-to-1 because that's what epoxy is. I'm going to go ahead and grab some gloves. We'll mix this 1-to-1 in a small batch, and we'll just put some nice even cuts on here with some paint brushes, and we'll see how it looks. Should be good with this. I'd typically go through and hit any air bubbles with a torch. I have one right here, just a little butane torch. You want to just lightly go over the area with the torch if you have any air bubbles showing up, and that'll just suck the air bubble right out, and works really well. Alright, got the torch. This is the fun part. There's little air bubbles here. And if you just hit them with the torch, it kind of just like blends them in. Alright, so we are back. I have slowly worked my way up all the way to 3000 grit sandpaper, as I said, on the spoiler as the sample piece, and it actually looks pretty good. The clear coat is pretty glossy in most places, and there are just a few spots that need some help getting the gloss back up. So essentially what I'm doing here is I think the last piece that needs to be done is, maybe you can capture it here just a little bit. There's a little bit of haze. I may be being a little bit OCD about it, but there's a little bit of haze here on this part, and I would like to bring it up to a point where I'm satisfied with it and get it nice and polished. So I'm going to just try something out here. Pretty straightforward and simple. I'm going to use Meguiar's Ultimate Compound. I've used this before and it's worked really well for bringing out that shine, and so I think it'll just bring out some of the haziness that's here and just bring out that shine. This is a super low cut. It doesn't cut the paint too much. This is mainly just for surface scratches and blemishes, so this will work really well for this surface, which is mostly in its final state. We just need to kind of clean it up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and work in a small section here and just kind of see what kind of result this gives me, and if it works out well for me, Then I'm going to go ahead and just completely do the whole part like this. Wow. Really haven't been doing this for too long here, but there's a drastic difference. And I think you can see up here is about where it's stopped. It's kind of hard to pick up on camera, but you know, there's some haziness here in this, and then out the edge here it is like glass, and it's looking really good. So it's actually surprisingly enough cut. I wasn't sure if it would cut the surface enough to get a good finish, but it definitely is, and I'd say that this is a good solution for this problem. I'm going to hit the whole piece, and this feels great. So I can rub my finger here and super smooth, no resistance, and then out here you can actually hear it. And over here, so you can actually physically hear the difference in the surface as I rub this glove across there. It's pretty awesome. So this is some good stuff. So here's the rear diffuser piece. Essentially what happened is this crack that was in here was through the weave of the carbon fiber to the point where it actually just doesn't look good. So I filled it in with black paint marker, and it looks okay, but it's not fully there, and it looks kind of... I'm going to a car show. I don't want to be taking damaged, crappy looking parts. Like these is just the clear coat, and there's no damaged epoxy or damaged carbon. So, you know, refinishing these and going to a car show, that's totally cool. Like these are perfectly great parts. They just needed the clear coat, the epoxy resurfaced on it. But this piece is actually physically damaged. The camera doesn't really pick it up too well. If I can get it there. It's just physically damaged. You know, I'm not necessarily trying to make a show car here, but I don't want to go to a car show, especially one of this caliber, with just some garbage looking piece. So I went ahead and I was like, screw it, what does it cost to buy? I found I could buy just these two replacement side pieces and leave the center diffuser as is in the middle, since that one's not damaged. And the driver's side of the car, this piece is actually still fine. So I decided for these two pieces, for this and the matching other side of the car, I ordered those two pieces brand new. I thought, you know what, I've already saved this carbon and the spoiler. That was a win, so let me just cash in some of that savings and get pieces that aren't damaged. Alright, here we are. We are finally finished with everything. It was well worth it because, wow, these are looking absolutely amazing. The finish came out so well. Super high gloss, perfect mirror-like finish on both of these pieces. And so I went with the same exact regimen as far as sanding goes. Had to sand these all the way down to almost the raw carbon itself. Had to be very delicate with that. And so some tips here on what you want to do, I'll go over here at the end. But essentially what I did is I brought this all the way down with a 600 grit when I got real close to the carbon. And I started going real slow and just making sure that you don't damage any of the fibers. So went all the way down to 600 grit, got all the old clear coat off. Then went ahead and cleaned off all the parts, and I hit it. This is where I realized it was a better technique on the second pass around, was I hit it real heavy with the epoxy. I put it on real thick, and I used a torch to get any of the air bubbles out, and that torch, I'll tell you what, it smoothed out the surface and it gave it like a glass-like finish. Once the epoxy had cured, I only needed to hit it with a 1200 grit sandpaper instead of 3000, or instead of with the spoiler I went way down to like 250 and worked my way up all the way to 3000 on the spoiler. For these, I just hit them with 1000 and 1200 grit to get some of the small imperfections out. Once I hit them with the 1000, 1200, I went to 3000 grit, and then I went ahead, then just like on this spoiler, I hit them with the Meguiar's polish, the ultimate compound. So this actually worked out insanely well. It cut through all of the surface blemishes that were left after that. So it really blended that top clear coat and gave a real mirror glass-like finish. At the end of the day, I would recommend some tips here, just in case you're doing this yourself. Tip number 1, sand the clear coat that's on there. Sand it all the way off. You're gonna see yellowing. If you've got real bad yellowing in your clear coat, you want to get all of that off. Tip number 2, when coating with the epoxy resin, you want to go on real thick, like I mentioned. Hit it real heavy and just douse it, and make sure you've got room for it to just drip off the surface. I am absolutely shocked. This looks great. It looks brand new again. I am so happy. Between these pieces and the lip, I probably saved myself a good $300 in parts, and also this stuff's gonna last way longer. This is marine grade boat epoxy, so it's gonna last much longer than the crappy stuff they're putting on in these factories. I'm just gonna go ahead and say thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions about carbon fiber repair or carbon fiber refinishing like I did, feel free to drop a comment down below and let me know, what the question is. I reach out to everybody that comments, so if you do have something that comes up while you're trying to do this yourself, let me know. I can help you out. I feel like I've learned quite a bit in this process. If you follow those tips, you'll be able to do this in a weekend by yourself. Super easy. Just buy some boat epoxy. I will put a link in the description for all the materials I've used, including this Meguiar's polish. I'll put that in the description. I'll put the epoxy that I've used, and also some links to some random sandpapers. Like I got that giant sandpaper kit off of Amazon that actually worked out really well. Went all the way up to 7000 grit, which was absolutely insane. It was felt like printer paper. It was so smooth. So I will link all that stuff down below. So I think I'm gonna end things off here. I'm gonna cut to an outro take here of just some little pans of these parts so you can get a real nice close-up look with a nice lens on the camera. So we'll give you a nice little view of what the parts look like, and we'll do a little quick install and time lapse and get some nice shots at the end with them installed on the parts. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.